What might you write about in a person? Well, whatever you want. But if that's too broad, I do have some ideas that I've tried, that I've seen done in other zines, and that I think can be really good. Um, I guess it kind of depends on how long or short you want the zine to be. If you're looking at just a few pages, some of these ideas might work better than others. Um, but and if you want something meatier, thicker, which tends to be me. I just recently put out a short perzine, a one-off. But when I do an issue of my main zine, Reckless Chance, that tends to be anywhere from like 28 to damn near 100 pages. Because I am a wordy MFer. All right. So, if you're looking to write a longer thing, I find it helps me to organize the zine either around a specific theme, like places I've lived, or crushes I've had, or my favorite albums, or something like that. Just use those as jumping off points. For instance, right now I'm working on a project, kind of a fiction memoir hybrid. Actually, probably more memoir than fiction, but I'm not telling what parts are the real ones and which ones I made up, because changed everyone's names, and it's kind of that whole thing I was talking about earlier. But anyway, I'm working on this memoir-y thing in installments, which I eventually want to put together as like a zine book thing. That's and the theme it revolves around is all has to do with the band The World Inferno Friendship Society. Memories of listening to their music, going to their shows, and also branches out into all the people I met because of being a fan of the band and things like that. So I can write about a lot of different stuff, and a lot of different times in my life, but then they all kind of tie together around a theme. And then the other way, I often do a longer zine is just writing about a specific span of time. I guess you could do a shorter one if it was a shorter span of time. You could write about like a day or a week in the life. I've done ones where it was like 3 years in the life. So obviously those were some pretty long zines. Here are some other ideas though. You could write a zine that's like the ABCs of you, with one piece, for each letter. Choose a topic or something that starts with the letters of the alphabet, and then write, something however long or short you want about, to go with each topic. For instance, if I wrote one, it might look like A is for anarchism, B is for bisexuality, C is for coffee or the Clash, and so on. And if you find that you have more than one thing for each letter that you really want to write about, you could Others make a longer zine. Or you could do it as a series of zines, like Cindy Crabb did with a run of issues for her zine Doris. Some issues were just one letter with, different um, topics that started with that letter, depending on if she had a lot to write about. Others covered, a few letters. You could do a zine about big, huge events in your life, like deaths, births, moving, relationships, breakups, graduations. Or you could do a zine of firsts. First kiss, first album you heard that really blew your mind, first time you wrote a zine. Get really meta there. Or you could do a zine about the tiny grand moments of your life. Finding a perfect outfit at a thrift store, staying up all night and watching the sunrise, an odd encounter at a coffee shop. Like I was saying earlier, nothing too big or small. And again, what I was saying before is you can intersperse these things. You could have tiny moments in there alongside the huge events, and then, mix it up. Say you're writing about your favorite meal as a child. You could include a recipe for that meal, or, you're writing about your favorite skate park. You could, include photographs you've taken of that skate park. You could include a poem or a piece of fiction, like straight up fiction, not the pretend this is fiction stuff I was talking about before. Intersperse it. That's the other thing I do when I tend to have longer zines, is that I start, if I don't have a theme or a specific span of time, I just, sometimes I see things I've written in the past, since I last put out a zine, and realize a theme has kind of emerged without my even trying. And then I might write, a few more things just to flesh it out. And then I put it together, and, I do tend to intersperse poetry with prose, with memoir, with lists, things like that. But I will warn you, especially if you're putting poetry in your zine, that as much as people might rag on personal zines, they like poetry zines even less. And those are the two things I mostly do. So, no, but you'll find people who do like poetry zines or poetry in zines. They're out there. Let's see. Another idea is writing a manifesto. That sounds like it's really crazy and political, but it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a manifesto for making art, a coffee manifesto, a manifesto for anything you want. I actually wrote a sort of manifesto type thing about zine writing, and I am going to share that at the end of this video. You could use photographs to inspire you, and I do this all the time with writing. Look at a photograph, one of yours, one from a family photo album, or, you could even find an old photograph from an antique store or a famous photograph that you saw. It really doesn't matter. And just, write from what it inspires in you. Some questions to think about, like what's going on outside the frame? What are the people in the photograph thinking about? How does the photograph make you feel? If it's a photograph that's not actually a personal one, what does it remind you of from your own life? You could write a piece or two after a zinester or other writer you admire. Um, I see this done mostly with poetry, but it can also be done with prose. And I'm not talking about plagiarizing. You take a piece by one of your favorite writers, use the basic structure and feeling of the piece, but make all words, thoughts, and experiences in it your own. Another thing you could do is a zine of reviews, or at least include reviews in your zine. And by this, I don't mean like typical reviews where you write, this band sounds like this other band, or this zine is recommended if you like this other zine. I mean reviews that are really more stories and vignettes than they are reviews, and or are woven into the larger narrative arc of the zine. Like, for instance, you could, write a film review that's really about, watching that film as a child, or write an album review that's really about the events that album reminds you of, or something like that. And, the other fun thing about doing reviews in this way, and, in a zine, is that you don't just have to review things like albums and books and films and etc. You can, review your car, or different kinds of ramen, or your psychiatrist or your roommate, or jobs you've had. I've seen people review donuts at Dunkin' Donuts. I've seen someone who reviewed rivers that they've seen and hung out near. A zine I really liked many years ago did a whole zine of reviews of shoes the writer had worn. And again, none of these are told really in traditional review form. They make them more like vignettes and weave them into a larger narrative arc. I mean, for example, if I were going to write a zine of reviews, or right now, I might write one, reviews of Christmas songs. And it wouldn't really be about the song itself. It would be about a time when I heard them and something else was going on, or, someone that they remind me of, or things like that. I mean, you can still mention concrete things about the things you're reviewing. I'm not saying that. I just mean, it can expand and further a more memoir and narrative context. So those are just some ideas to get you started. I mean, like I said, mix it up, experiment, write whatever you want. Nothing's too big or too small. But the last thing I want to say before I just go into the, how-tos of making zines is that the great thing is you're not on a deadline here, or, unless you make one for yourself, which I sometimes do because otherwise I never get things finished. But you don't have to show your zine to anyone. So if you write something and then feel either it's too personal or not good enough or whatever the reason, you can, just toss the zine out or stick it in a file somewhere and, look at it 10 years from now or never. And the other thing is that, again, as there's no deadline necessarily, you can take as long as you want to work on a zine. You could write one piece for it and then, add another one 5 months later, and then another one a year later, or in a shorter time frame than that. But, or, sometimes you write several things for a zine and you think you have it done, And then you decide, yeah, a couple of these pieces aren't good, and just, cut those pieces out. Um, so you can really take as long as you want to make it something that you feel comfortable putting out and that you feel proud of. You can, spend as long as you want editing. I know a lot of people have the idea that any kind of self-publishing zines and, self-publishing books and everything, a lot of people think it's that people who do that don't edit, don't care about the finished product as much as people who get more traditionally published. And that's certainly not true of me, and I know a lot of people who that's not true of. So, you can spend a lot of time really getting it to a place that you're happy with. And, if you like to, you can have a trusted friend who knows all your secrets already, and they're not going to judge you for anything they read. Or, find someone in a writing group online where you can trade edits. And, that's something that is a great thing to do. There's many places online where you can, meet other writers, other zine writers, but just other kinds of writers, and just, give each other feedback if you want to do that kind of thing. Again, I said a trusted friend who will look for typos, but not care about, you know, what you wrote about them or anything else. By the same token, you can bang out a zine in 24 hours and, just give it a once over, and you might feel like it's good to go, and that's fine too.